Welcome back, sleepyheads, and this is part 3 of our Ye's Not Crazy, a spiritual analysis of bipolar disorder. So I've given you the spiritual, energetic perspective of bipolar disorder. We've gone over some symptoms, we've gone over some statistics, definitions. I've given you a whole batch of famous artists, of really talented, prolific artists who have, impacted society and culture, who have bipolar disorder. So now I'm going to tell you what's happening on an energetic level when an artist creates and how that can fuel a mental, physical, and spiritual breakdown. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Sleepy Aliens Perspective. I am your host, Leigh. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get 1 million subscribers. Help me grow from this. I haven't even hit 1,000 subscribers yet. Help me grow. Help me spread my higher-minded content. Donate to this channel because trust me, I am doing my own research. I am taking time. I want to help people. I want to spread good messages and I want to be able to do it more. So please do donate to this channel and help me grow. So let's dive in because I'm really excited about this segment. So I'm really about to give you my personal scientific theories, and we're going to get into that scientific and spiritual love mesh that I just love talking about. And these are some the theories that I'm going to share. A lot of it's based on information that I've channeled from the spirit realm that was gifted to me and things that I've pieced together. So I think honestly it's just going to really revolutionize the way people perceive bipolar disorder and the way people look at artists. So in part 1 and 2 of this episode series, I discussed various symptoms of bipolar disorder in relationship to the creative process and the challenges many artists go through. But what I didn't tell you is what happens as an artist creates. Here's the S.A.P, and in case you forgot, S.A.P means spiritual, energetic perspective. That's right. So please keep in mind, this is my working theory and I'm still building on this. I think it's awesome. But there's a lot of information to go through. So take down some notes. You may have to rewatch this a couple times, but trust me, I think you're going to enjoy it. So the first component of this theory I'll be focusing on is my theory surrounding the physics of what's happening when creation occurs, which is consciousness expansion. So what is consciousness expansion? Consciousness expansion is expanded awareness referring to states of consciousness in which either self or the space around them seem greatly enhanced or enlarged. Now, I just had this thought. It just came to me. So think about when an artist blows up and rises to fame, right? And we already know that we are made up of stars, but now when you see this artist giving more energy, it expands their energy, it expands their consciousness because people all over the planet are aware of their work, are aware of who they are, what they do, and what their energy does for them. So just really think about that. The expansion is not only happening internally for the artist, but it's happening on a physical level. And it is interconnecting with other life matter all throughout the universe. So, English philosopher and physician John Locke described consciousness as what passes in a man's own mind. So, consciousness, John Locke said, is what passes in a man's own mind. What passes through all living matter? Energy. Now, we know that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Yet, what exists throughout the universe are subatomic particles that contain stored energy. The stored energy that rests in the nucleus of atoms, and atoms, of course, are the basic units of all living matter. We are 99% atoms and subatomic particles, right? So the concept of stored energy, I believe, is essential for understanding what's happening physically when artists create and why their consciousness expands and breaches new levels of awareness. So what I believe, well, first I'll say, this theory also explains how artists psychically connect with other energy sources and channel information. Because Let me not just jump ahead. I always start jumping ahead of my notes. So I believe artists use their subconscious mind, their own stored atomic energy, to generate a vibrational charge accelerated by the four fundamental forces of physics, which are strong force, a force that binds quarks, and quarks bind subatomic particles. The other forces are gravity, electromagnetism, and weak force, which is a force that regulates the decay of subatomic particles. So I believe an artist essentially generates their own energy, sending signals electromagnetically, penetrating levels of gravity, and these four forces, right? These four fundamental forces, they are using all of that to send an energy out and connect with other matter and energy sources in the universe. And this happens unintentionally and intentionally, right? So because artists most likely unintentionally use the four forces for their vibrational charge, they are able to penetrate boundaries of space and time, which furthermore connects them to higher dimensions and otherworldly spaces of matter. So to add a couple of S.A.P elements to how artists charge their vibrations, artists also use their chakras and their auric fields. So considering the use of one's own stored energy, chakras, and auric field, this is why it's so important for artists to regulate their wellness so they can generate, heighten, and sustain their vibrational charge. Like, that is essential. That vibrational charge that allows them to expand consciously and to create beyond the scope of their normative boundaries. So furthermore, I believe the potential power of creativity itself charges the vibrational signal as well. So the process of vibrational charging and attracting matter through subatomic connections is what expands the consciousness. But what people don't realize is the expansion of consciousness, especially during the creative states of action. They require more brain power, more chakra power, more auric field expansion, more alchemizing, more energetic transactions. All right? So please keep that in mind. So during this expansion, because all of that is what's causing that expansion, right? So if an artist isn't balanced in their wellness, if they aren't eating well, if they aren't sleeping well, if they're doping up with too much drugs or alcohol, they aren't going to be able to charge their chakras, their brain power. They aren't going to be able to alchemize. Their auric field is going to be weakened. They're going to be letting all these other negative energies in their auric fields because they've created all of these channel portals, right? I got a little sidetracked there. So yeah, so I believe the power that's necessary for their creative actions and thinking will overwork the vessel, exhaust the chakras, disorient the mind, body, and spirit, ultimately manifesting into physical, psychological ailments such as bipolar disorder. I really love this section. I got so just geeked up writing about this stuff. It was so exciting. So consciousness expansion, while it's an exciting and powerful experience, it can distort reality and overload a person, because a person could be channeling too much at once. They could be channeling too much energy, sending out too much energy, but not recharging their system. So think about when an artist, like we were talking about in a previous episode, when Kanye is on tour and he is, performing, he's connecting with fans, he's doing interviews, he's giving out so much energy, but is he sleeping? Is he eating well? Is he recharging those chakras? How is his auric field? Is he allowing negative energies to invade his peace, his wellness, his space? You have to think about those things. So if you're a creative person and you detach emotionally from earth in a spiritual context, if you detach from earth, you detach from your vessel, and that could cause more distortions. And I say this because we're going to get into more of this later, but artists go to different places energetically to create and birth visionary art that, hasn't been seen on an orbital scale by the public, they go to different spaces, right? I guess it's almost like, well, let me not start a whole new theory. We'll just save that for later. So this next section is mainly for my logic-rooted viewers, right? So I've just given you this theory that people are using their stored energy, right? Their subconscious mind, their chakras, and their auric fields to connect energetically with other energy in the universe, other subatomic particles, other atoms, other matter out there, right? They're using all of that to generate new creative energy for themselves, right? To birth new ideas. And I know you're going to be like, what does she mean by that? But we're going to get into more of that. You just wait. But yes, we've talked about all that. But now I know there's a lot of logic people out there that's like, okay, so that's an interesting theory, but I'm sure you're wondering, how the hell would I prove this on a 3-dimensional scale? Well, my logic listeners, I'll just give you that, and then we'll get right back into our normative discussion. So now, if I were trying to prove this on a 3-dimensional level, I could, and I would likely create a volunteer study comprised of subjects who identify as artists. I would have 3 subject groups. Each group would perform an artistic task related to their skill set while connected to an EEG to prove heightened subconscious activity that they tap into. They would also complete open-ended survey questionnaires about their psychic experiences and sensations experienced during the creative process. Also, I would administer a couple Likert scale surveys to rate their physical, spiritual, and mental health status. The first subject group would only perform the EEG test and the surveys. The second group, however, would be instructed to eat a set diet and maintain regular sleep and exercise a month prior to the EEG test and surveys. This group would be given a paper and electronic file to track and record the diet and health compliance, right? So the last group would spend an hour of dimmed sensory meditation prior to engaging in the EEG performance. So what do I mean by dimmed sensory meditation? So this is something I've coined for an individual that doesn't go into full sensory deprivation space, but instead relaxes in a room with limited sound, no lights, and possibly wearing a blindfold, right? That is how I would administer it for this experiment. So researchers have asserted that the cerebellum, which is located at the bottom base of your back of your head, right at the top of your spine almost. So they have asserted that the cerebellum is where the subconscious mind is most active in the brain. So I would use an EEG to prove heightened subconscious activity during creativity. As far as measuring the vibrational charge, I'm not a do-it-all Betty, so I would need some interdisciplinary assistance with that one because I'm not a physicist. I would also require a physician in the study to measure heart rates and other physical symptoms that could raise atomic activity occurring during creative states in the body. So this study would be awesome. So if somebody wants to hire me and fund it, great, I'll do it. If somebody else wants to run with the idea, I'm cool with that too, because I have so many ideas and I'm known for stretching myself thin with my endeavors. So at the end of the day, I also believe that research is all about helping society grow, evolve, and understand things. So never covet an idea that, could really help the public, the general public. So I don't mind giving research ideas away. So I've named my conscious expansion theory as creative consciousness expansion. How is this different from just consciousness expansion? It's intention. So artists are very intentional when they create, and that's the psychological force that increases their expansion potential. To be exact, creative consciousness expansion happens when artists use their alchemizing potential to tap into creative sources and birth new content, which ultimately expands their consciousness awareness. I know that's a lot. So now if you think I'm crazy, Let me get into some real life examples. But first, a quick reminder. As I've said in previous episodes, we are all psychic beings. What I'm saying isn't witchcraft. It is not sacrilege. Don't forget that we as beings are made up of stars, mysteries, and still barely understand the true power of our minds. Societal conditioning, weaponized religious teachings, and general propaganda has made people believe that psychic abilities are fiction, a soul power that only evil beings in this universe covet, and that power of the subconscious mind exists for us to work, eat, shit, fuck, love, feel, sleep, and die. Now, I'll let you live with that limitation if you want, but I think it's absolutely fucking basic, and I refuse. Psychic abilities, witchcraft, chemistry, alchemy, cooking, it's all the same thing. It's a manipulation of matter and subatomic particles, which we are. We are that, right? We all have the ability to connect and communicate with other forms of matter, both invisible and visible to the eyes. So yes, psychic abilities, just like everything else in this world, can be used for negative intentions, but it's a matter of the person or persons, not the topic as a whole or psychic abilities itself, right? So now that we've covered the scientific aspect of my theory, you might be wondering how info is gathered from the spirit realm or higher dimensions. So if you know anything about the spirit realm or communicating with beings outside of Earth or other dimensions, English is not a common language. So information gathered or delivered to artists will come through the subconscious to the immediate consciousness by form of images or sounds or feelings. Since many have not awakened their light bodies, have not really made that connection to their higher selves because they're so energetically blocked and their conscious beliefs limit their perception, and also their third eye is so fucking close, it's just really close. So oftentimes the info will be delivered in dreams, and I'm going to talk more about that shortly. But now back to some interesting examples of artists intentionally and unintentionally connecting with the spirit realm. And I really enjoyed reading some of these. I mean, they surprised me too. So given the general ability of one being able to manipulate matter and energy, it should not be surprising that artists use their psychic abilities, whether they're aware or not, to produce works of art. Hilma Klint, a famous Swedish painter, was quoted saying, "The pictures were painted through me without preliminary drawings and with great force." Dorothea Tanning was an American artist known for multiple art forms, but her paintings were the most popular of her works. Dorothea created visuals of what she believed to be alternate universes derived from her ability to tap into the unknown. Kesha, in 2012, admitted to having sex with a ghost. Aaron Carter admitted to connecting with his dead grandmother through a burning candle that she gave to him before she died. Bret Michaels admitted in an interview that he saw orbs. Kevin Gates has been accused of practicing voodoo magic, which is very common in the Bayou area, so it's not unbelievable. And also in several interviews, Kevin Gates has discussed communicating with spirits and other elements of spirituality. Ariana Grande is quoted saying, "The smell of sulfur means a demon is near." Cher explained during an interview that the spirit of her ex-husband, Sonny Bono, makes frequent and playful visits to her. While working on an album, Meatloaf claimed that he was visited by a female spirit. It scared him so much he took sleeping pills that night. And this one really blew me away. So Lupe Fiasco spoke about this in an interview. He said that he woke up one morning during the early hours, able to see visible streams of electricity surrounding his room. The electricity even shocked him. Right after he was shocked, he saw a UFO fly off into the distance from his bedroom window. And wait, it gets a little creepier. He also discovered a new scar on the bottom of his ankle. I mean, at this point, if you really think about all those people who say they, woke up and were like being examined by aliens, or just had aliens in their bedroom. It's at this point, so many people have said that it's very common. It should be very believable that other beings have technology that can make them translucent, invisible, and they have aircrafts that can also be invisible. I don't know. We can get into more of that later. I'll have to do a whole alien episode, but yeah. So Lupe, I believe you. Elton John says a ghost sat on his chest during a stay in a Belgium hotel. And I have to say, Elton, I know what that feels like, because when I started having sleep paralysis episodes when I was a kid, I'm talking like second grade, I lived in a haunted house, and like the spirit that lived there, he did not like black people. And I tell you, multiple times this fucker tried to harm me and my family, and the weirdest stuff happened. But I remember the first incident that I had was when I came home from school. I was like really like in that when you're a kid and you like want a nap, but your mom's like making dinner or something. So I was in that weird state of like, okay, I can't really fall asleep. I'm just going to lay here. But you end up being in that half awake, half, asleep state for a nap. But that is the perfect state of consciousness for sleep paralysis and for supernatural experiences to occur during sleep, because you're essentially like mixing multiple realms in that state. And so that was the first time I had that spirit, and that spirit was pressing on my chest, and I literally couldn't get out of bed. And when I finally got loose from him, I like ran and told my mom. And of course, especially back then, there was no talk about sleep paralysis and supernatural experiences. So I think I just brushed it off, but it was pretty crazy. For Alicia Keys' Girl on Fire, Nicki Minaj wrote a verse about the spirit of Marilyn Monroe visiting her and encouraging her to commit self-death. Now, the spirit itself wasn't probably Marilyn Monroe. I think it was just probably another demon using, the form of Marilyn to encourage Nicki, because Nicki wrote a song about Marilyn Monroe, and I can't remember what album that was for, but I think she had like she resonated with Marilyn so much in the industry, and just being sexualized and the things she had to do for her body and to sustain like attention and all those things. I think she just had like a emotional connection to Marilyn, and that's why the demon probably came in that form to try to trick her to commit self-death. But that was interesting to me. Lana Del Rey has a personal psychic medium for guidance. Jay-Z is a known follower of dark arts alchemist Aleister Crowley. He is also connected to Marina Abramovich, who is an artist and who has also been accused of practicing Satanism, which she denies. However, Marina's art is birthed from really dark themes, and she even uses what she claims to have been fake blood for her art, but others claim that she used real animal blood. And I've seen the images of that. She's like, I don't know, I think it was like some weird mannequin of a child, or I don't know what she used, but she has like this room, and the white room, and she like pours the fake blood over the children. It just looks really fucking dark, Marina, and that's why nobody believes you, all right? And your whole energy is dark. Bitch, you're a dark witch, and it's okay. Just be out and proud about it. I mean, why we gotta lie about this shit at this point? Let me not get heated. I just hate when people bullshit. So now, most people keep their supernatural experiences in the closet because of society standards. And if you think about artists wanting to keep those spiritual and supernatural experiences in the closet, it's because they don't want to impact their fan base. And so much of our society is shaped around religion and religious teachings and the propaganda that alchemy and witchcraft and all these things are bad, demonic, and dark. But like I said before, everything in this world, everything in this life has a use of both good and bad. It depends on the person, how they want to set their intentions and make use of that activity or action or object or whatever the fuck they're doing, right? But regardless, artists are tapping into higher realms of existence and sometimes forgetting to close the door behind them. So my theory of creative consciousness expansion highlights how creativity not only expands your consciousness, but your awareness of other dimensions, beings, and energies that are all, like, you know, always intersecting in our dimension, right? Like, right now I'm on this podcast, but I could have like 3 different spirits in here that I don't even know about, right? Who knows? I mean, I did sage, but I mean, they're peaceful, but you never know, like, the spirits crossing over in your space, because spirits have that ability. Angels have that ability. Demons have that ability. And people who practice, you know, certain aspects of alchemy, you know, they can gain the ability to project themselves into spaces. And not only through astral projection, you know, but there's other ways too. Well, I won't get into all of that. But to summarize and refresh what we've talked about so far, I believe the creative consciousness expansion occurs when people use their stored energy, their subconscious, and the vibrational signals coming from their chakra, the auric field, to connect with other matter, both intentionally and unintentionally. So I believe if an artist isn't balanced in their wellness strategies, they will not be able to physically, spiritually, or psychologically withstand the creative consciousness expansion, which will lead to manifestations of physical and psychological ailments such as bipolar disorder. So when it comes to creative consciousness expansion, intentional expansion, artists have to be very careful. Believe it or not, there's so much more out there, and once you discover it, trust me, it can be hard to come back to the normalcy of everyday reality. Now let's talk about creativity and social service. So many don't contemplate the power of creative consciousness expansion or creativity itself, especially on an energetic level. But let's think about it. Why do artists have so much power in our society? A lot of people, of course, will say, oh, it's the money, it's the fame. You know, yes, that's a part of it, but not at all the truth. The real reason why artists have so much power is the way they channel creative energy and the degree to which they share it. So Richard Barrett is a writer who created the model for the 7 levels of consciousness, which was inspired by Maslow's hierarchy of needs model. Before Barrett transformed Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he mainly wrote about leadership and leadership development. For this part of my breakdown, I'm focusing on the 7th level, which is the level I believe many artists reach, which is service. That's when a person is practicing leadership through contribution, societal responsibility, compassion, humility, and actively influencing future generations. So also consider the spiritual service of art. And I have a great example for that. So let's talk about an artist like rapper Leigh. So I know Leigh best for her party bumpin' song, Pussy Be Yankin'. And I really do fucking love that song. So many would say this song is a trash box wildin' pussy song. However, Leigh is providing a service. We don't know how many times that song helped someone get out of bed, how many friends it brought together, how many people it made smile, laugh, or how many pussies out there felt a sense of empowerment from that song. And what about Ye? Like I said before, his music definitely helped me get out of bed. I know it's definitely probably helped you get out of bed. It's probably helped you cry a little bit, work a little harder. That is service. That is societal contribution. The service of Ye's art can be considered a high-value societal contribution. Any artist, because we do not know exactly how what an artist puts out, we don't know how it could impact society or who it's helped on an everyday level. We have no idea. We cannot assume that. So we have to assume that regardless, they are contributing to society and they are providing a service. So from a spiritual, energetic perspective, I believe the intention to contribute to society heightens and fuels the creative consciousness expansion. Because when the universe knows you're not only doing it for yourself, you're going to be able to attract more matter out there in the universe, more ideas. You're going to be able to channel more information, more inspiration. You're going to be able to give more, essentially. And that's why that creative consciousness expansion also gets a little dangerous at times, because it really does expand your awareness, and it gives you that expansion because you have the possibility to contribute, to be of service, and to change and to help others, right? Or at least I think that's the way God sees it. He's like, yeah, you want to help people? Okay, let me give you some ideas. And you're just sitting out in your backyard or something, and you're watching the stars, and next thing you know, a great idea comes to you, right? Because you're ripe and open for it, and you have the right intentions. So for this next section, I'm going to get into the facets of the creative consciousness expansion, which I call the 4 spheres of creative evolution. So when an artist goes through creative consciousness expansion, there are 4 spheres that trigger the evolution of their creative skill set. So life force is the first sphere. An artist must give their life force to materialize their idea or vision. That's why an artist or pursuing the development of any idea requires a sacrifice of energy, right? You do have to give your life force to receive something back from the universe. So if we're talking about extreme material and social gain, that's a different kind of sacrifice, and that's a whole different episode. The second sphere of evolution are energy channels. So when we create, I've talked about this in the previous parts of this series, but we open new energy channels, and we must maintain them during the creative process. And remember, your true body form is that light mass of energy that its sole purpose is to attract, release, store, process energies that are coming from all directions throughout the universe. Because we are interconnected, but we're always communicating with other matter out there, both visible and invisible to the eye, right? So the channels develop from connections to matter and subatomic particles, and they use those 4 forces, those 4 fundamental forces that I talked about as far as physics. You're using the gravity, the electromagnetism. So I define 2 types of energy channels, abstract and concrete. Abstract energy channels open up from emotions, and especially ones that are triggered during the creative process. Performing actions related to meditative skills, memories, dreams, and the unknown. I believe all of those things open up abstract energy channels. Concrete 3-dimensional channels of energy pertains to actions surrounding survival needs, daily life obligations, and social relations. Both abstract and concrete channels will require an artist to maintain and balance energetic transactions occurring from all of the open energetic channels penetrating their light body. Now, a lot of people aren't aware of how many energy transactions they make in a single day and how that impacts their vessel, mind, and spirit. So managing all of these energy channels is what makes artistry and creation, co-creation, so tumultuous and unpredictable. I mean, that's the unknown, and that's life in general, but this can also heighten the negative impacts of creative consciousness expansion that lead to physical and psychological ailments such as bipolar disorder. The third sphere of creative evolution is imagination. As awareness broadens, so does possibilities and outcomes. This expands one's capacity to create. This can literally increase the disorientation that comes along with the creative consciousness expansion, leading to adverse outcomes. So not only are you creating through your imagination, constantly shifting your perspective of reality, because that's what imagination does. That is how we create. We must believe in the unseeable and bring it into our reality, right? Get a little water here. Sometimes things get so distorted and it can be difficult to reground yourself back in the 3D. The fourth and final sphere is the multi-dimensional and energetic exploration. So creativity becomes an outer body experience when one's creations attract energies from higher dimensions and the spirit realm. I've already given you real life artist accounts of tapping into the spirit realm and beings from alternate dimensions and just having supernatural experiences. And that doesn't just happen to these artists for no reason. It's because their creative energy has opened up their consciousness awareness and it's bringing other things into the reality, right? So I want you to imagine if it was normal for everybody. Like if we all believed in the spirit realm and aliens and all that shit and unicorns, guess what would happen? It would materialize more in our reality, right? And that's why we have been told to not believe in these things, because if we did, we would understand that our capacity is greater, that there is more out there. But when we are made to limit that belief, it limits what our reality can conceive and what does actually manifest in our reality collectively, right? So I've already given you, so aside from the natural occurrence of this phenomenon during the creative consciousness expansion, the easiest way to multi-dimensional travel is by hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and dreams. And I will definitely do an episode about hypnosis and sensory deprivation in the future, because you guys know I talked about in a previous episode, I started experimenting with hypnosis when I was in college. I helped one of my professors with their research, and that just birthed my whole just obsession with consciousness and the subconscious. And then in 2017, I started going to the sensory deprivation spa. And at the time I lived in Flagstaff, and there was no spa in town, so I had to drive to Sedona, which is crazy because you feel so out of it when you get out of the sensory pods. So I would have to sit in my car for an hour, and I would have to usually get some coffee or something to kind of help me wake back up, and I had an incident. I forgot. I recently remembered why I stopped going to that sensory deprivation spa in Sedona. And yes, I should have reported this, but I wasn't speaking up at the time about things in my life. I wasn't using my voice accurately. But so I had a session at the sensory spa, and before you get into the pod, you have to shower. And so I was showering, and I look up, and I noticed that one of the tiles are cracked open. And so I immediately just got a really nasty feeling in my gut that someone purposely cracked that tile, and there could be a camera up there. But when you're in the pod, you're not naked. So I was wearing a bathing suit, even when I was rincing off and stuff. So I still completed my pod session. And then when I was done with the pod session, they have this essential oil aromatherapy thing you can hook yourself up to for 10 minutes. And it kind of helps revive your senses and wake you back up. So I'm sitting there and I'm getting the session done, and I tell the guy that's working, and I will say there's been some weird guys that worked at that spa. But I told him, hey, I was when I was showering, I noticed the tile was cracked on the ceiling. And the guy just looks at me, gives me this really weird look that just makes me feel even sicker. And then he was like, oh, thanks for letting me know. And then he goes into this office that's right across from where I'm sitting. And he knows that I'm watching him, so he cracks a door. And I don't know what the fuck he does while he's over there. And then he goes into the spa room, and I think he fixes the tile. But I never went back there after that. And that's when I started hypnotizing myself in my bathtub, because it was cheaper and it was safer, and voyeurism is a thing, and there's a lot of shit on the black web that we don't know about as far as what voyeurs are uploading. So you just never know, and I totally should have called the police, but like I said, I wasn't very good at speaking up, and I really didn't know how to report something like that, And what if I was wrong? I don't know. I just was not following my intuition very well at the time. But I was waking up, I tell you. Yeah, so I really got into all those things, and I will do a future episode about that. But hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and dreams are the easiest way to multi-dimensional travel. But since most people don't believe, understand, and haven't tapped into their alchemizing potential, most people will passively experience multi-dimensional travel through their dreams. Now, many dream based on daily life experiences and emotions, and like you have those dreams of fear where like you feel like you're going to be late in a dream and it's all about like your anxiety and all that shit. Like those are the basic level dreams. But some people are able to tap into the consciousness of their own selves living in alternate universes and dimensions. So this is when you have those, and this is completely one of my theories as well. So this is when you have those high definition POV dreams where you feel like you've stepped into a movie scene. I believe these alternate versions of your life are revealed to you through your dreams because you're fulfilling the same life purpose and able to energetically connect with yourself in that alternate dimension. Because your souls are, well, I mean, it's the same soul, but you both are facing similar obstacles in life at that time, but it's just in a different setting. And you might just look a little different. And your house might look different, or maybe it's really futuristic, or maybe it's really indigenous, you know? So these dreams are meant to, when you have those dreams, those POV, multi-dimensional dreams, it's meant to help you understand yourself and your life and the kind of soul missions you completed in other dimensions and past lives. But most people consider dreams to be imaginative works of consciousness fiction and subconscious muck. You know, again, there we go limiting things. You know, there we go limiting our capacity of our minds with these dumb fucking beliefs. I get so pissed when I talk about it. And I'm also recording and my apartment is so hot right now. And I had to close all the windows, so I'm kind of talking faster because I'm just getting really hot and sweaty. But here are some examples of the power of dreams. Did you know there would be no periodic table if Dmitri Mendeleev hadn't dreamed about those squares? The double helix wouldn't be shaped like a spiral if Dr. James Watson hadn't dreamed about a staircase. And like I mentioned before, information from alternate dimensions and the spirit realm come to us by form of images and sounds. So Mary Shelley's masterpiece monster, Frankenstein, would not have existed if she hadn't dreamed about it one fateful night. So again, the four facets of creative consciousness expansion are life force, energy channels, imagination, and multidimensional and energetic travel. Again, I will also express that if an artist cannot maintain their wellness during the creative consciousness expansion, they may lose control of the energy that's been alchemized, leading to expansion side effects that fuel physical and mental health ailments such as bipolar disorder. Now, I've already gone over the S.A.P interpretation of bipolar disorder symptoms. Now I want you to consider how those symptoms might be triggered by the creative consciousness expansion. For example, rushed or scattered thinking. If you're managing a good 50 energy channels any given day, expanding your imagination, experiencing otherworldly events, and expending above average amounts of energy, wouldn't you experience some rush and scattered thoughts? Or an increased activity towards goals? Wouldn't your perception of life alter, causing some depressive symptoms from change and the emotions that come with change? Because one thing is for sure, expansion is the key to evolution, right? So the creative consciousness expansion, the four spheres that coalesce that process, you know, that is the phenomenon associated with creativity and consciousness expansion, right? That is what's happening energetically. And it's so important to take that into your awareness if you're an artist and you're listening to this, or if you're a creator, or if you're a scientist, you know, you really have to be mindful about your energy channels, about your wellness, about how you use your imagination, about how you interpret your spiritual and energetic experiences. You really have to be careful about the labels that you take on from society, because that label is like, it can put a stamp on your belief systems and limit the scope of your understanding, right? So the four spheres of the creative evolution coalesce, that creative consciousness expansion, but I think I already said that. But I also, so we've gone over those otherworldly accounts from artists. We've talked about those four spheres of creative evolution. We have talked about the physics associated with what happens when a person creates and what happens when they connect with other matter in the universe. And I have to be honest about how nervous I've been to do this episode. So I did the bulk of this research back in January, and I wrote a paper for it back then. And at that point, I was still in pre-production phase for getting everything together with the podcast and working my confidence up to do it, right? So I was not prepared to, talk about these things. And when I initially made my list of episodes for the podcast, Ye's Not Crazy was supposed to be the third episode I did, but I waited until I was comfortable recording and openly talking about my psychic awareness. Also, I wanted to make sure I expressed this information clearly and confidently. But more than perception, I was nervous about being David Iced publicly, which may still happen, but that's okay. So if you don't know who David Icke is or his famous 1991 TV interview, I would definitely look him up. David has exposed how other beings have infiltrated our planet, our institutions, and how they have negatively shaped societal events to manipulate the human race. The great thing about David is that no one believed him for so long, but eventually people discovered that his facts were facts. So now he's had a multi-decade career speaking his truth, educating others. He has books and he does conferences. He's really made a career out of, following his passion and being of service to society. And being of service to society by talking about some of the most taboo, hush topics and calling out some of the most high-profile members of our society. So truly his name holds some weight, and it might even trigger something in the YouTube algorithm. That wouldn't surprise me because of censorship. But aside from my desire to promote spiritual wellness for artists and the general public, I wasn't sure what God was guiding me to do with this podcast, but now it is very clear to me. I think I am meant to be in a leadership role and help normalize psychic abilities so society can evolve and move forward and overcome the energetic oppressions that's been draining our life forces and destroying the human race. In a conspiracy level, we might be taught and we're told that psychic abilities were fiction and demonic because there are beings in this universe that don't want us to evolve our race. They need us to be distracted, limited, docile, and in disbelief of our greater potential. Trust me, there are other races in this universe. Other societies where psychic abilities are as normal and as accepted as BBLs and flaming hot Cheetos. And yes, I made a joke, but I'm being absolutely serious. We continuously shame the human race by limiting the capacity of our minds to govern logic that can't explain the entirety of our universe. That's why we've seen history repeat itself in the same way so many times. We as a collective haven't evolved enough to progress from war, starvation, racism, senseless violence, and corruption. If we as a collective were classified based on the 7 levels of consciousness, guess what? We'd be at level 1, which is survival. And that's a state where you're highly susceptible to control, manipulation, and greed because everybody's in a state of just trying to survive. We got people robbing people. We got people flashing money. We got people, harming children. We got people doing all of these things because these nasty, energetic states of survival that we as a collective are still haven't evolved from. So to me, that makes us vulnerable to other beings and forces in this universe that can manipulate our energy for their gain because we are not aware of the power of our energy in our minds. It's time we talk about psychic powers more and for people to equip themselves with the proper skills and knowledge while they can. Now, I know people don't like to believe in the spirit realm or angels or aliens or demons, but hear me when I say they do exist and I've seen them. And it's not just a matter of fiction and TV and fake stuff. It's real. Like, the power of your mind is real. And it's not just limited to, oh, she's a witch. It's witchcraft, you know? That is your natural power as a being in this universe to attract and manipulate other energy and matter. That is a natural power. And there's different levels to how you can do that. And when you are intentional about it in a positive way, you can have a positive effect on society. But yeah, when you're doing it in a negative way and you're using it to harm people or extract things from other people, then yeah, sure, call that person a witch or whatever. But let's not limit the scope of what we are and what's happening in our world. And I say this because it's so important to evolve your psychic gifts, your knowledge, your skills, your love energy, and your connection to source. And I'm not talking about the end of the world when I'm saying all this shit. I'm talking about seeing the world for what it is and what it has always been. We are not alone on this planet or this universe. We have never been alone on this planet or this universe. Other beings are using technologies and skills that we should and could all be using too, but propaganda has made people disbelievers. The fact that society as a collective oppresses psychic abilities and supernatural awareness makes us fucking ignorant and absolutely foolish. We have CERN trying to capture dark matter so they can give consciousness to artificial intelligence. And you don't want to believe in psychic abilities? Like, get the fuck out of here and wake up, okay? I get so heated about this because collectively society is agreeing to live in limitation, and I'm not about that life. I'm about evolution, discovery, saving Earth, and ascending the oppression of this planet. And I'm all heated. So have a good night, sleepyheads. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And remember, your evolution is your key purpose.